Hi, and welcome to 40 Cray, a podcast by two almost 30-something guys whose adult lives and responsibilities haven't eclipsed their zeal for stupid, nerdy shit. From Warhammer to video games to hockey to dumb, stupid 90s songs. If it's your fandom, we're your tandem. I'm Ben, your co-host, and of course, I'm, as always, joined by the one, the only antisocial butterfly himself, Tommy Bones, Bonesaw McGraw.
Hello.
Yo, I just introduced you for like 30 seconds. So all you're going to do is say hello.
That's my thing.
Yeah, I know. We got a big topic today that you suggested, Tom. What's the topic and why'd you pick it?
So we're going to discuss the most effective or shocking heel face turns in wrestling history. And we normally do like best, but also worst. Like our format, we kind of end up doing that sometimes, right? So
Yes.
So feel free to, if there's ones like a face heel turn that like didn't work out and you're just like what the fuck were they thinking? Feel free to throw that into.
On the flip side, so I interpreted this a little loosely and may have not read it closely. So I picked like my favorites, but I think I can work the shocking into that. And in my case,
whatever.
Unexpected.
Yeah. As long as we can, talk about it, I think. So what kind of sparked the idea? I don't know. You stopped watching, right?
I watch AEW sometimes, but I don't usually watch WWE anymore.
So recently, you know how Brock Lesnar like rarely works.
Yeah, and he's got a little stupid ponytail.
Even when he was the champion, he would show up like maybe work for about a month out of the year.
Yeah, not say anything.
Well, yeah, the saying anything was great, because they knew that he wasn't good on the mic, so they gave him Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
And Paul Heyman's probably the best talker in the industry.
Lesnar.
I am the advocate. He's probably one of the best talkers in wrestling history. So that was just a perfect pair. And then when Brock, sort of took his hiatus, Paul Heyman started working for Roman Reigns,
who also
sucks on the mic. So that was also a good thing. But now Brock is back. Brock.
He's back.
He came back a couple of weeks ago, and confronted Paul Heyman. He was like, like what the hell? Ended up almost F5ing him. He's like got a beard now and like a weird ponytail, but like it was just so weird to me that he was a heel for so long. But I don't know. I guess he came around at a time that face heel line was like there was some gray area.
Yeah,
because there were some heels that people love to cheer for.
And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in mine.
Yeah, and some faces that like John Cena and
that you love to hate.
Yeah, you would have the dueling "Let's go Cena sucks," going back and forth. So yeah, like even though he was a heel, I've always been a Brock Lesnar fan. But now it's like seeing him actually like getting the crowd over was a little weird. So
did he actually talk?
Yeah. I don't remember what he said, but I guess that's something he's been working on.
So for our audience, real quick, should we explain for those that may not know what a heel and a face, what those terms refer to?
Mm-hmm.
So in pro wrestling jargon, a heel is a bad guy and a face is a good guy. That's basically it. But that said, like Tom was saying, sometimes your bad guys, your heels, are more interesting, well-developed characters and are really fascinating and really good actors. And sometimes your faces, like John Cena, can be kind of annoying. I actually like John Cena for the most part, but he's a little bit of a.
I was not a fan.
But we're not going to get in that debate right now. But one thing that's common, the term a face turn or a heel turn, is to progress the storyline in wrestling. Which, by the way, it's not real fighting, to be clear. So if anyone who thinks it's real, they're real athletes. They're certainly very fit, and they're good stuntmen that do things that really are painful.
Yes, it takes a lot of skill and training.
But they're stunt actors, and they're amazing at it. This is not taking away from what they do. But to be clear, if you pile drive somebody, you would kill them. It's not real.
Yes.
So in these progression of these storylines, something that can create a lot of momentum is when your good guy does something completely unexpected, becomes a bad guy. That's a heel turn. And that makes you hate that person so much because you trusted them, you loved them, and then they betrayed you. And on the flip side, if you have a bad guy who suddenly does something noble and amazing, it can create really powerful feelings of attachment and appreciation. So it's a really powerful tool to galvanize the story and create momentum.
Yes. Drama is a big part,
Drama. It's basically a soap opera for everybody. I don't think it's just for dudes. I think a lot of women watch it too.
Back in the day, it was just for dudes, but
back in the day,
the women's division has grown exponentially. They're just they're doing a lot of great stuff,
and in many cases are more entertaining than the men. That said, apologies ahead of time. I don't have any female heel or face turns in my list.
Neither do I, but I did consider one.
Which I definitely want to hear about. But that said, I think you started last week, so why don't I jump in with my list to give you the space, because the guy who goes first always gets KO'd by the guy who goes second. My last lick. So a couple of these are pretty shocking. This number 5 was more just something I loved.
Okay.
And I thought was really cool at the time. And I should also say secondarily, to anyone listening who's a hardcore wrestling fan, undoubtedly there are better and more shocking heel and face turns out there that I didn't pick, either because I didn't see them, so I didn't get a lot out of it.
Okay.
Or I just really had a lot of feelings toward the ones I did pick. So it doesn't mean these are the best. These are just the ones I really enjoyed that I think, played with my emotions a bit. So my number 5 was the roughly 2004 to 2006 period. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, face turn of the Guerreros, Eddie and Chavo Guerrero.
Mm.
And at this time, Eddie and Chavo, first of all, Eddie is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
Yeah.
Great on the mic, super talented, super influential, great heel. And he and his, I think, nephew, Chavo, were this tag team that would come out, and Viva la Raza would play
Latino Heat,
which is probably weird because it's probably taken advantage of a certain culture or cultural
insensitive.
I whatever, but these guys
that's wrestling.
I know, and we had a whole episode about cultural appropriation and just bald-faced racism. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll say, as a guy watching this, they were very funny. They would do things in the match that were hilarious, really contrived ways to cheat. And they had shirts that said, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Right.
And they were just so much better than the good guys they were up against that they became faces. People were rooting for them and loved them. And the company, WWE at the time, had to just change and embrace them as the good guys because they were so beloved.
Right. I love when that happens. When the fans just, they're trying to, push a heel on you, and it doesn't work out. The fans just get behind it so much that they have no choice.
The other thing I'll just call it, they had a car with hydraulics that they would come out on, which was so funny. So Eddie Guerrero, rest in peace. Chavo Guerrero, I know you're still active. I saw you in Lucha Underground. But man, Eddie was so good. Such a good wrestler. All right, that's my number 5. The accidental Latino Heat face turn.
So like you, I think whenever we do a wrestling one, I only include things that I've actually witnessed. And shockingly, my list today is actually in order.
Yeah. You mean in order of your favoritism?
Yeah. So we'll start with my least favorite, I guess.
Your least favorite of your favorite.
Yeah. So of the 5 I've chosen, we're going to get progressively.
Tom, this is progress.
Right?
We're a real podcast now.
Lex Luger, 4th of July, 1993. So before this point, Lex Luger was the narcissist. Right, and he would come down to the ring in the feathered robe, and he'd come down to the ring, and there would be a full-length mirror waiting for him, and he'd pose in front of the mirror and look at himself, and it's just the audience just fucking hated him, right?
Yeah. It's so stupid, but it works.
Right?
You're just like, boo!
Because he just likes himself. So they decided, I guess Vince or the WWE decided that they needed a new Hulk Hogan. So they had the super strong blonde guy already in Lex Luger, but he was heel, so they had to turn him. And at the time, Yokozuna was the heavyweight champion, 600-pound. His gimmick was, he was a Japanese sumo wrestler, but he was Samoan. So there was a challenge that anyone who could body slam Yokozuna would get a shot at the title. Right, the 600-pound dude. Anyone who could pick him up and body slam him. So on the 4th of July in 1993, aboard I think it was the USS
Intrepid,
yeah. A bunch of people are coming, trying to pick him up, and hurting their back. They can't do it. A fucking helicopter just lands on the deck of the ship. Lex Luger comes out, body slams him, wearing like red, white, and blue shorts. Like it was just so America, over the top. Like on the 4th of July, it's just, this is how you put someone over in 1993, right? And that just did it. And that was it.
Wow, Lex Luger. I was trying to look up for a second when he went to WCW, because I remember he was in one of the NWOs at some point. But all right, Lex. Meanwhile, he's named after a German pistol.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, Lex Luger becoming an American hero.
Yeah, by body slamming
Yokozuna,
a very large Samoan wrestler.
Dude, he was huge. He was like over 400 pounds. I mean, he died not that long after that.
Yeah.
I think it was like maybe 95 or 96.
Yeah.
Dude was big.
And I think literally every Samoan wrestler is somehow related to him currently.
They have a lot of like people from like a related kind of family tree. So like Roman Reigns, The Rock.
Huge wrestling family, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think Rikishi and the Usos, they're his kids. Yeah. All right. Well, Samoan wrestlers are amazing. My next pick. So there were two kind of big turns in roughly like the 97 to 98 era. The one I'm going to pick is because I liked it at the time. There was another one that's bigger that I assume is probably on your list that I didn't pick. So the one I am picking is the unexpected Mankind face turn.
Okay.
So in roughly 97, you had Mick Foley, who's an amazing wrestler. He takes the bumps. And I saw him live maybe like 10 years ago doing a comedy tour. He tours the country supporting actually it's a rape prevention or not prevention. It's a victims of sexual assault hotline. So he's important work, very great stuff. Thanks to you, Mick. You're a great guy. But man, he used to take some serious damage. And that was like,
dude, the man feels no pain.
Yeah, it's freaky. Even watching those videos today. But back then, at some point he was a character called Cactus Jack. And then he made a switch and became Mankind.
Yeah,
which was this weird character who was kind of like a misanthrope. Like he lived in the boiler room, was like very scarred mentally, and he wore this strange like leather harness on his face. And I think the character he pulled his own hair out. He wore like a dirty button down with a tie.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of this weird character. I don't think people got it. And then he started doing these promos where he was being interviewed by JR. And for those who know, promos like when they show like video footage between matches that just kind of set up a broader storyline. And he in these video interviews, he created this character to JR, who was Jim Ross, a famous announcer, describing this terrible childhood where he was picked on, and then he tried to eat worms to be popular, and said something like, "No, the girls didn't like me then. Do you want to kiss a mouth that can just eat worms?" and it was so weird and so over the top and yet so sympathetic, and you were just like, man, is this real? Like, this might be real. And you just wanted him to win so bad that suddenly, like, it propelled him to superstardom. And then after that, he had these amazing performances, famously like Hell in a Cell '98, where he fell off of like the
Undertaker.
Oh yeah, it was like a 10-meter, 30-foot cage, broke something, got back up. His famously had just so many injuries and just kept going. But I loved
when the Undertaker, I think, power bombed him through the top of the cage,
and it broke
onto a chair. And when he fell, the chair hit him in the face, broke his tooth, and his tooth ended up stuck in his nose.
And so in this famous match, if you haven't ever seen this, even if you're not a wrestling fan, go YouTube Mankind, Undertaker, Hell in a Cell. So basically this guy, it's a 30-foot tall metal cage called the cell, and he got thrown into it, and it was supposed to hold him, but it, safety standards, it broke.
Yeah.
And he fell through it, and a metal folding chair fell on top of his face and messed him up so bad, like he had a hole in his lip and he was putting his tongue through the hole, and it looked insane. But man, his rise, not a fit guy, not a super attractive guy, but my God, we loved him.
Yeah.
That's my number 4, Mankind, circa 97, 98.
That's a good one. So not quite so iconic, my next one. Do you remember the right to censor?
Oh, the was it
like
like
Stevie Richards?
Yes.
And Ivory. So they were doing this thing, they thought the Attitude Era was getting too risque. So they would come in, put like a burlap sack over Sable and like shit like that, the right to censor. And they were trying to keep wholesome, family entertainment, whatever. So they healed. Obviously, they were heels because who wants that bullshit, right? They ended up recruiting the Godfather, who was, his character was, he was a pimp. He would come down to the ring with hose. And
how did that get into the show? That is so inappropriate. Anyway,
yeah. So they ended up recruiting him, and he became the good father. And they all wore stupid white shirts with like a black tie. I think they also got Val Venus.
Right. Whose character was that he was a star of an adult film.
Yeah. So now he was a part of the right to censor, and no, that was just because it was such a 180 from their character. It was complete, opposite of everything that they had been doing up to that point. So now, and nobody liked it. I don't think it worked very well. The right to censor didn't last terribly long.
So that was a failed heel turn.
Yeah, the good father.
I remember because in the video games, if you like cycled through the Godfather's outfits, one of them was the good father, but clearly it didn't last because it was like one of the alternate outfits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The man, the Godfather. All right, you ready for number 3?
Yeah.
Were you ever a fan of the Shield?
Yeah, they did their thing.
Yeah. So back in the day, the Shield was a 3-man team comprised of Roman Reigns, who would go on to be kind of milquetoast, Dean Ambrose, who's now in the AEW doing something else, and Seth Rollins. And in the group, like Roman Reigns was like the kind of quiet, tough guy. Dean Ambrose was like the crazy guy who was kind of, they would call him the lunatic fringe all the time.
Yeah.
But he was like the unstable one who would cause fights. And then Seth Rollins was like the smart guy who would like keep them all together. And they wore weird kind of like pseudo military mercenary like leather outfits, which were kind of cool, I guess.
Like flak jackets?
Like that kind of stuff, like bulletproof vests and like, basically black. Like, and then I think the gimmick was like there was some kind of like almost like mercenary group that would protect people or something.
Yeah, I just remember them coming through the crowd. Like, they walked through the crowd and came down to the ring.
Yeah, hard to believe they broke up in 2014. So that was 7 years ago. According to my research, it feels
Seems
like
like
it wasn't
25 years ago.
It does it. So, so the heel turn here is Seth Rollins, who was like the one that was constantly trying to keep the Shield together.
The architect.
The architect. At some point, they were having a match against like Triple H, who's like, you know,
Well,
always been the symbol of the authority of
right.
like, you know, the bad guys and the guys who control the league, you know, the stereotypical corporate manager guy. And they were beating him up. And then he said, I've always got a plan B. And then Seth Rollins, again, who's the guy who started the Shield and kept it together, turned on his two friends and beat the bejeebus out of them.
Yes.
And then he kind of went on to become like the principal heel for a while. And then for a while he was a face. I don't know what he is now.
He was the champion for a while. The whole Monday Night Messiah thing with Rey Mysterio we talked about in an earlier episode. And now Roman Reigns is the champion. You know, they've done good things.
He's fine. He looks the part. I don't know. But so on the Shield thing, I wasn't a big Shield fan. I was kind of getting tired of him at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no warning that this was going to happen, and it was a really like I hated. After that, I was like, Seth Rollins, you asshole. And I didn't even care before, but then I cared afterwards. So for me, that was a really shocking and effective heel turn.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
That is my number 3.
So my number 3 happened at WrestleMania 17.
The Galvin Gobbler.
Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin basically joined Vince McMahon. And what was shocking there, because if you know Stone Cold Steve Austin, like his entire persona up to that point was anti Vince McMahon. You know, they feuded pretty much his entire career. He was the anti-authority.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, he's teaming up with Vince, and he's gone the corporate path, I guess. So that was just a huge mind fuck.
Well, it's weird because I think The Rock at one point didn't he also did a turn where he was working for McMahon and then he wasn't, and then he was. There was a lot of like back and forth, I feel like.
Yeah. To the Attitude Era, there was a lot of that, working for McMahon and then turning on him. He was the People's Champion, and then he was the corporate champion. And
that's a good window. Yeah, I remember that too, because I remember it was kind of like, is this real? And then he had a really like lame reason he went back to being a face. It was just a stupid move. Like, why would you take arguably the most popular wrestler of all time? Like, he's up there.
Yeah.
If not number 1, definitely top 3, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then just kind of like turn him on his face like that. I don't know. All right. You ready for another really stupid one at my number 2? Are we at number 2?
Sir.
Okay. So we'll do number 2, then we'll do some honorable mentions here. So number 2, 1991, Sergeant Slaughter becomes an Iraqi sympathizer.
Yes.
Is that on your list?
No, but I remember that.
So Sergeant Slaughter's whole character he was like a Marine drill sergeant, and he was like super America. And then I don't know who thought this up, but I remember why. Because in like 91, the WWE hired like Nikolai Volkov or something.
Yeah.
And then I think the story was like Sergeant Slaughter was so mad that hired a Russian that he joined the Iraqi army. This is what he wore like one of those like Saudi head wraps, and he wore an Iraqi like officer uniform, and he would go around like carrying an Iraq flag, and then he pledged allegiance to Saddam Hussein, who we were at war with at that point.
It was just Saddam Hussein apologist.
It was so over the top and so stupid. Like, it was such a naked thing. I think people did hate it and they were booing, but they were also booing like, this isn't really believable, guys.
Yeah. Although that was the time when, nationalism just instantly made you face, and, being a foreigner made you a heel.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, remember Rusev was not the last person to kind of undergo that. Oh, he's the bad guy because he's like Russian or foreign or something.
Yeah, they billed him as being Russian, even though he had a Bulgarian flag tattoo on his arm.
I know. Yeah, he did. Apparently, he's a super cool guy in real life. By the way, Rusev.
I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
he seems
and
like it.
he actually did Muay Thai in Thailand, so he's actually like probably legitimately could kill any of us very easily.
I was in
Uh,
Thailand once.
yeah, yeah. Did you do Muay Thai there?
There was a bar that had a Muay Thai ring, like in the middle of the bar. That if you got drunk enough, you could go in and challenge somebody.
Was Rusev there?
I didn't see Rusev. No.
Okay, good. Probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So Sergeant Slaughter turns Saddam Hussein follower.
Love it.
Fucking dumb, but hilarious. Very just nakedly. Oh, let's make this guy a bad guy now. Apparently, Sergeant Slaughter had wanted to be a heel, but then he was like, "Yeah, I couldn't do this one though. Like, I just couldn't. It was really hard to do." All right, number 2, Tom.
My number 2 is WrestleMania 15. Triple H joins the corporation.
Oh, when he left DX.
Yeah, he effectively ended Degeneration X in order to join Vince McMahon, and that was just so like as bad as Stone Cold one was, like DX ending so that Triple H can be a corporate lackey was just even worse. Like that was their whole thing.
But that's been his thing since then.
Yeah, he's been corporate since WrestleMania 15 until today. But that was because DX was so cool. Just back in the day, they didn't care. They pissed on WCW. They did their own thing, even if it was derivative, because I think
It was like NWO basically.
NWO had come before that, but they were really cool. They had fun and they didn't care.
And it was Shawn Michaels, Triple H were in this faction. China was in this faction.
Yeah.
Road Dogg,
the original
X-Pac
three
was what Triple H, Shawn
Shawn
Michaels,
Michaels in China,
and then Road Dogg and X-Pac, and then didn't
Billy Gunn,
and Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, yeah. Well, they gave him a shirt. I think he had a tag match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think.
Oh yeah.
Memory's fuzzy there.
Oh, and then he turned on them at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, DX was pretty cool. But I will say the whole switch to corporate thing clearly has worked out for Triple H.
Yeah, I mean, he married the boss's daughter, so
he kind of had to. Well, the other thing is the reason he's called Triple H, like his real name was like Paul Levesque.
Levesque.
Oh, is it Levesque? But he, I cannot pronounce. Okay, well, there you go. But his character was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the Connecticut Blue Blood.
The Blue Blood, yeah.
And he would act like really like snooty, and I think he wore like a cravat at points.
Yeah. The pedigree,
So they changed it to Triple H to try to get people to forget that. So clearly, like the last guy you would expect to be in a like anti-establishment.
Right.
I'm trying to see if I can find a picture. Oh yeah, he wore like a hunting jacket, like he was on a fox hunt.
yes. The blue velvet jacket.
And he had like a ribbon in his hair holding his ponytail.
Yeah. But the fact that his heel turn ended Degeneration X, it was kind of, the impact that had. That's what made it my number 2, I think.
That's a good one. That is a good. I didn't even remember that one because I just forgot Triple H was anything but what he is now.
Corporate shill.
He's good. I gotta say, like for all the nonsense as a corporate shill, he's really good at his job.
I think he's probably put more guys over than anyone. Like I was just thinking about like even Evolution, Randy Orton and
That's
Batista. Right. Just being associated with Triple H, it puts you over.
I would dare say that he's probably one of the most like his impact is like everyone's like, oh, Undertaker, oh, Steve Austin, but like Triple H was getting shit done in the background and making it happen. So I'm a big Triple H fan. Less when he came out as Shao Kahn in that one WrestleMania, but
or the Terminator tie-in they had.
Oh yeah, that was weird too.
Yeah.
Number one. I suspect this is your number one too.
Okay.
It's not a WWE.
Okay.
Hey Tom, who was the biggest WWF star up until the early 90s?
Would you say Hulk Hogan?
I would. And then you remember when he came back as a bad guy in WCW?
In 1996 at Bash at the Beach?
Rocked my world. Was this your number one?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened when this happened. This blew my mind.
Oof. Well, before that, right, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had already joined. You know, they did that cool thing where people didn't yet know that they were no longer employed by the WWF, and so they think that, oh, we're getting invaded by. So now here comes Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. I think they had a triple threat match. I don't remember
I
the
think it
exact.
might have been a 3-on-3 tag team.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact circumstances of that match, but Hulk Hogan comes down out of nowhere, and just joins up with them, and decides, hey, we're gonna create the NWO, and that was just.
Like I remember, because I didn't see it happen, because again, like in 96, I don't remember where I lived, but I probably wasn't allowed to watch wrestling, so I used to watch it at friends' houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that year I probably hadn't had any friends yet because I just moved. This sounds sad, but it's true. You move, it takes you a little while to find somebody who can watch wrestling at their house.
Yep.
I should probably talk to some professional about this. Anyway, so but like I went to school and people were talking about it. I was like, nah, Hulk's not a bad guy. And then I just didn't believe it. Like I didn't believe it. I didn't want to hear it because growing up, like I knew Hulk and loved him.
I am a real American.
Yeah. Like I knew who he was before I knew what wrestling was. I just thought he was like a superhero because he was on everything and didn't believe it. And then I remember he even had a part, like I think it was a Muppets movie. I think it was Muppets in Space, where he was a bad guy and he broke the fourth wall and he looks at the camera and he goes, "That's right, I'm a bad guy now." And I remember like a tear on my 13-year-old face just being shed.
Yeah, Hollywood Hogan.
Blew my mind. Best heel turn, no question.
Yeah.
That definitely got people watching. People talked about it who didn't even care about wrestling. Such a stab in the back, because it would be like John Cena going over to AEW as like, I don't know.
Oh, I think it was Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Randy Savage versus Sting, Luger. Shit. Can't remember now.
All right, here we go. Hulk Hogan heel turn. And that was an Eric Bischoff move. Remember Eric Bischoff?
Yeah. What was the card for that? Randy Savage.
Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage.
Yeah.
And it was Hall and Nash. And then Hogan showed up.
A 2-on-3?
I think it was supposed to be 3-on-3, and then I think Hogan showed up. Boy, we're going to get a lot of crap in the comments for this.
It was also Dean Malenko versus Disco Inferno.
Oh yeah, Disco Inferno. You know what? Another one, Fandango becoming a face despite the WWE's best attempts to not have that happen.
Yeah. And then he formed a tag team with what's his name? Prince Pretty. I forgot his name.
Yeah, so it was between the Outsiders and their mystery partner. The Outsiders were Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and it was Randy Savage, Sting, and Lex Luger. So apparently Lex Luger got really beaten up, and then he got taken out. And then Hulk Hogan just showed up and just like they all beat the bejeebus out of people. And it was a big deal too, because I think it wasn't where he and Randy Savage were rivals in the WWE, but I think they became friends later, right?
Yeah, so I did consider that as well, because they were the superpowers at one point. Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan were a tag team called the Superpowers. And then I forget who it was. It was probably Savage that turned on, went heel, but yeah, they had a long history.
Chris Benoit had a match that night too. Mm-hmm. But anyway, dude, that blew my mind. That's a good number one. When I picked it, I was like, I think Tom's gonna pick this too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, down. That was a fun.
I also considered everything leading up to the Brothers of Destruction.
Oh, Undertaker and Kane.
When Kane made a face turn to join up with the Undertaker. And
yeah, that was cool.
And then when they disbanded, a heel turn to break up.
that was a really cool. I remember I had a video game where they were both like together, and it was like, yeah, who else are you going to be? Why would you be anyone else? All right. Well, Tom, as always, this has been fun. Audience members, don't forget, we are going to be making a change soon. We'll have more details about that in the future. But in the interim, don't forget to mash that like and subscribe button. Maybe share us with your friends, or don't. You know.
No, or don't. We'd prefer that you did, but you don't have to.
You know, just trying to make something here. It's no big deal. But we love you. Thanks for listening to us. You know, good fight, good night.
Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 6065.
You're going to
Space Camp. You want to put my hand hard in the blender?
Yeah, I don't like that song either.